isn't one of us that doesn't want to be someplace else. This is what we do. Who we are.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
Boom, and welcome to Rambo and Frens. What a couple days it's been, right? Look, I want to welcome everybody piling in here. If you didn't see yesterday's show, do yourself a favor. I went back and watched it. It was so good, just so I could pick up on everything I might not have picked up on while I was watching the chat and doing the production stuff and everything else that goes with it. Stormy Patriot Joe and an absolute 1776 deserve every accolade they ever get. Dave and I, as you guys will see here in just a minute, are amazing guests that we're having today. We're just talking behind the scenes before we got started, and it's almost mind-blowing the way, look, a lot of the stuff that I do personally is that news unlocks the map, right? So we see things that come up and I can look back at the drops and say, oh my gosh, look, we were told, right? Hindsight's 2020. It's really kind of I use that term so often, it's absurd. Joe is literally predicting the future. It was unbelievable what happened yesterday. And if you guys don't know what happened shortly after the show, you are going to find out today as me and Dave talk about it. So that being said, let me get into our guest for today. So Dave from Treason is somebody that I've seen for a while. And, you know, you don't realize that you're going to end up crossing paths or building relationships with certain people. And it's not always something that you're even reaching out and trying to do. A lot of times I think God has his hand in everything that we do in this movement. And this, for me, at least, was one of those moments. And quickly, very quickly, for anybody that watched his show the other night, you will see that Dave and I have built a friendship, texting, messaging, and helping each other with stuff. So Dave is somebody I'm grateful for right now. He has a lot to do with the growth of this show in just 4+ months to get to where we are. So with that, I'm going to do the rest with him on here. So let's hear from the boss and bring on the guest of the day.
I wouldn't miss a chance to talk to my friends. These are my friends.
I wouldn't miss a chance. What's up, Dave?
How's it going, Rambo?
Dude, I'm really, really excited to hang out with you. It's definitely gotten that way, bro. I appreciate you. Thank you. Look, I don't even remember if it was you that reached out. I don't remember how this happened, but it was really, really cool to be able to come on to your show a few weeks ago and for your audience to be so receptive to who I am and what we do over here. I couldn't wait to have you. Like, I didn't want to do it back to back because we had just been over there, but like, this is, I didn't want to wait any longer either. So thank you very much for coming, bro. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me on, man. I know we were talking about this backstage, but I think it's worth repeating.
Uh-oh. Oh no, Dave, you just glitched. Oh, frozen Dave. Am I the only one?
There?
Yes, you're here now.
All right. I want to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in a hotel. I'm actually Mark and I are in Orlando for the Foundations for Freedom conference, which is put on by the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers, Sheriff Max organization. So I have pretty good internet here. If it glitches out, I apologize. But I was saying, I'm just so happy to see your success. It's, to me, having gotten into this, and I don't think any of us ever planned to be where we are right now. But there's so many people that help you along the way, and people that you watch and really learn from it. And that's the way this is supposed to work. We all learn and help each other. And Rambo, you've been one of those people for me, because of the lane that you're in, especially with your just incredible memory of and the way you can recognize Trump's comms and things that happened years ago, and we were talking about, Abs and Stormy over on Eye of the Storm. I mean, those guys having been there from the beginning, I think it's inherent that anybody that's part of this, as you say, the second generation of Anons, take the time to learn from them, which is what I know both of us have done. But it's just, yeah, I mean, look, it might be a little nerdy to say, but it's true. I just feel it's really cool for me when there's people that I've watched and I've looked up to in a way and gotten information from, and now we're all kind of connecting together. And, Rambo, for those that don't know, second time made the leaderboard yesterday and Rumble. So, that's why we asked you guys to hit that thumbs up, because it's well deserved. And I'm just really happy to see your growth, man. You deserve everything that's happening to you right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to reiterate that. So yesterday on the show with Stormy Patriot Joe and Absolute 1776, you guys put us right now, it's sitting at 33. So this morning when I woke up, it was at 34 and it's climbing. So it went up one spot just before the show. I checked. And that is because all of you guys interacted, whether it be a thumbs up or a comment. I think they all factor in the way that I'm looking at it, because our viewership isn't nearly what some of those are. Like we're up there next to like Roseanne and stuff. Well, and what did your show get up to? 13, I think it was, right?
I think we did hit 13. And,
Bro.
you mentioned the people from our audience, and we have an amazing group of people over in our community, and so many of them cross over here. And I think that's why so many of these different shows mesh well together, because it's, like-minded people with like-minded audiences, and it's people that are just open to looking at everything. And that's what you do here, right? You look at every possible scenario, as implausible as it might seem, and you get people to think. And that's what Q is. It's this whole thing. It's getting people to think. So yeah, man, it's very cool to see what you're doing over here.
Yeah, I think next week, Dave, I'm gonna have to have somebody that vehemently disagrees with me because this week I only had time for 2 shows, and it was Abs and Stormy, and now you. And I think we pretty much agree on almost everything. So one of the things that I like to do over here is have those difficult conversations and be able to hug and shake hands and kiss and walk away with respect for each other, right? I think that's the ultimate goal. And this whole thing is, excuse me, we can talk about comms all day long. I think it's become blatantly obvious that there's an operation that's going on. So once you realize that it's blatantly obvious that there's an operation going on, sure, the comms are interesting. People want to see them. People want to continue to be and feel part of the operation. So those are great to talk about. But for me, once you have realized that, and you're digging for that and you're presenting that, you realize that it's not necessarily all just about that. There's a reason for the operation. And so what is the reason for the operation? I believe it was posted in some of the last drops, and I know they're debatable on whether or not they're true. The most recent ones, I will tell you that Stormy Patriot Joe 100% believes that they're real. I don't know. I'm not for sure. I can tell you that Stormy Patriot Joe has been about 99.9% right about freaking everything he says. So take that for what it is. Use your own discernment. But there's a word in there that kind of expanded my thought process, and that's ascension. And so I looked deep into the definition of ascension, and I looked into what it means to me. I looked and asked God through prayer and meditation what it was I was supposed to interpret from that word, because for some reason it just stuck with me, right? And what I came up with was that there's a higher level. We're supposed to be rising up through this process. And once you realize that all of that ego and emotion and all of the things that this process is breaking us of are, once you're broken free of those, I feel like that word ascension kind of encapsulates our goal. And how many times does the drops talk about unity? What is it? 32 times, I think it says the word unity. It talks about wanting us divided. It talks about they want you divided, but together we are strong, right? Stronger together. So that's the ultimate message over here. I would love to hear your thoughts on that whole thing.
Yeah, man. Actually, it's funny. the way we think. I while you were saying that, I just looked up Unity. It's actually 57 times
Whoa.
it pops up in the drops.
Whoa.
And I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that Mark and I spoke about, and he was really the one that pushed me to start my platform when the old one kind of went sideways. And that was one of the things we said in the first show we did, was that we felt that a lot of and it's not a criticism of anybody in particular, it's just, but a lot of these other channels that had come up were kind of operating on their own little island, and yeah, operating from ego, like my intel is the best, my information is the best. And to me, you bring up Abs and Stormy, and like I said to you backstage, I learned so much from those guys. They've been so right about so many things, and they were somebody that for years, me being part of this second wave, I looked back, I was like, all right, these are two guys that were here from day one, right? You cannot, it's like anything else, you live through something day in and day out, you cannot replicate that. You and I could study the drops for the next 10 years and we're never going to know it as well as Abs and Stormy, because they watched it from day one, like all the other OG Anons. And so when we started doing this, we said, I don't want to be one of these people that is, listen to me, I'm the best. I don't want people to listen to anything I say. I want them to take it and process it and form their own opinion. And those are OG Anons, as well as I do. That's how it worked, right? Q would put a post up and people would collaborate with each other, just like you and I and do now, where we're texting each other at 3 a.m. Oh, look at this. What does this mean? That's the way all the stuff that so many of us second generation Anons know to be true, it happened because those guys were in the trenches in day one as it was happening, collaborating with each other. So that's what, so I tell people now, you got to listen to a bunch of different people. And that's one of the things I respect about what you do here. And I really like to do more of it on our platform is, I point this out all the time. You had, when all the controversy was happening surrounding the assassination, you were steadfast in what you believed, but you sat there for 2.5 hours a couple of days after with two other Anons that didn't see it the same way as you. And it was one of the coolest, most respectful conversations I've seen. And that's what we need in this world and in the media. And that's demonstrating unity. And so that's what we try to do, even on our side, is have a bunch of different people and collaborate with people to kind of bring back what I think had been lost a little bit as this thing dragged out, is the collaboration between people. And the last thing I want to say on Ascension, I agree with you on your take on those drops. I personally don't subscribe to, I defer to the older Anons on that. I don't subscribe to the next set of drops being fake. That's personally just my take on it. But the word Ascension, this whole operation, this whole thing that we're living, Q, is about getting people to think for themselves and to not take what me or you or anybody in front of a computer screen or a television screen is saying as gospel. And, even that word Ascension, unfortunately, even within our movement, we're kind of at a point where there are still people that still subscribe to the CIA propaganda, which is they look at the word Ascension and they get triggered. They call it, well, that's New Age stuff. Well, really? Where did New Age come from? Who came up with New Age? It was a CIA psyop to get people to not look at, quantum entanglement and spirituality and other stuff, to divide people that actually looked at Tesla science from Bible science, right? So even that word, we still pigeonhole some of these words into, for what we were told. And I personally think, yeah, Ascension is exactly what you do on this channel, what we try to do, which is, raising up above the propaganda, and even if it means challenging ourselves and our own indoctrinated beliefs, being open to anything, and I think that's where most of us are at this point, which is, you could bring something to me and I don't care if my my gut is screaming to me that that's the most insane thing I've ever seen in the world. I'm going to write it down and look into it, because I think we've all learned over the last few years that the more crazy you think something is, typically the more it ends up being true. So it's important. So I agree with you, man.
Dude, what a journey, right? It's been look, you extended me this really cool opportunity to share my story with your fan base, right? And I've done it a few times over here. And I don't honestly know. I haven't seen all of your episodes. I wish I could go back and watch it, but I hear you have amazing shows. But when's the last time you got to tell everybody like kind of who you are? Would you like to do that the same way that you gave me that opportunity?
Yeah, I could give you the Cliff Notes version. I think a lot of people here have heard it, but yeah, man, absolutely. You said something the other day with I think it might have been with Awaken Outlaw. I forget one of the round tables you did, and you guys were talking, and you said something to the effect of, have you ever noticed that so many people in this movement are either going through or have recently gone through or in their life have gone through, very difficult times. And that hit me. I was like, wow, you're absolutely right. Your story is just incredible in terms of what you've overcome. Mine's a little different. It's not as it's not as deep, but it's definitely, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the last 4 or 5 years of kind of my own chaos. 17 watching on YouTube.
That's cool.
And yeah, I'll give you the short story. So I listen. I'm always quick to tell people I was a normie. I mean, straight up, I was a normie. I was, I grew up in a fairly a good, maybe upper middle class, if you would, household. I had amazing parents, and I did the corporate thing for a few years. I realized it was sucking the life out of me, and I went into business for myself, been through a bunch of different things. But fast forward into 2016, and I didn't know really much of what we talk about now. I did know, having lived in New York. I said to people at the time, I said, I think Trump not only is going to win, but he's going to do an
Wait,
amazing
wait, wait,
job.
wait. Did you just say New York?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said York for a second. I'm right
Oh,
outside
no.
of York. I'm right outside of York, Pennsylvania. I was about to be like, bro, are we neighbors? Sorry.
So yeah, I was rooting for Trump from the beginning, just because I knew who he was, and I always said to myself that we need a businessman. This is the largest business in the world. And I would say, when people ask me when my awakening started, it was sometime in the first couple of years of the Trump administration, because, yeah, I knew the media was left and right, but it, especially being in New York, it just started getting crazy, man. When you start seeing people's cars getting keyed, and a lot people on our channel know I spend a lot of time digging into financial news because of my background. And at the time in 2016, I was a real estate developer, fairly successful, good group of friends. Life was fine. I got up and watched Fox News every day. I was not a conspiracy theorist. But as the Trump administration rolled on, I started noticing, like, I should have looked at his foreshadowing. I started wondering if I was losing my mind a little bit, because, yeah, you could argue, about abortion and things like that, policy issues. But when you're talking about, like, mathematics, like a Trump, like, hey, you can look at this thing and see 90% of people are getting a benefit from a tax cut, and 72% of Americans being polled are against it. I'm like, what is going on here? And I have people attacking me. It was crazy. So I think that's what started to break the matrix for me. And I didn't discover Q. I didn't even really look at it until 2019. But it was 2020 that really completely changed my life. The year started off ending a relationship that I thought was kind of going to go the distance. That kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. And it was literally like 2 weeks before COVID started. And then COVID hits, and I think I bought it for a day or two. But then they started doing the masks and the lockdowns, and I lived in, not lived, but I spent 2-3 months at a time in China when, like, SARS was going on and stuff. Yeah, they wore masks over there, but they didn't do any of this stuff. I was like, well, what is going on? And everybody's buying into it, everybody. And that threw some of my, so that's when I started really digging into things, and I fell in the queue heavy and hard. And that's where I started looking at the work being done by some of these guys we talk about on X. And for me, you start seeing some of these Q proofs, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, holy shit, I fell very quickly. And so, it was chaotic living in New York, and we all do the same thing, right? You discover Q, you start learning all this stuff. You want to, I always call it the fire hose. You want to fire hose all your friends. Look at this, they're coming to save us. Everything's gonna be all right, and they're like, you've lost your mind. And so, it was difficult being there. And I always tell people, I don't get scared by anything that's going on in the world. And quite frankly, I'm past the point of getting scared by anything we've learned. Not that it's not disturbing. What I get scared about, what has scared me and frankly traumatized me a little bit, is watching the world get brainwashed during COVID and just watching. Joe, I was in New York. I lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, which faces the city, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the most dystopian things that hits me in the head is every day, I mean, thousands of people like robots would come out on their balconies at 7 p.m. and bang pots and pans. Thankful for the frontline COVID workers. And meanwhile, we're looking at videos of the hospital in Queens and there's nobody there, right? And we're seeing empty, and we're seeing the clips of outtakes of body bags and people unzipping them themselves and getting, all the stuff we know. And I'm losing it at this point. And I got out of the city. I was living up at Hunter Mountain. I had a boat for a little period of time. I was living down the shore, like anything to not be there. It really got to me. I just couldn't deal with people. And so I'm diving into Q. And the long story short is that, as 2020 and we know what happened during the election, I had friends that worked for two major news organizations. I made a spreadsheet at 5:30 in the morning of Wisconsin. I started looking at the absentee ballot return rates, and I saw that the average for the country was 64%. The average for Wisconsin was 71%. And you had areas like Milwaukee where they were getting 97% of the absentee ballots back. And I'm like, this isn't. And I made a spreadsheet. I sent it to 3 of my friends. Oh, you just dropped out. You got me there?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, sorry, just cut out on this end. And I'll never forget sending it to 3 of my good friends who were senior producers. 2 of them ignored me and one actually laughed at me over text. And I was like, what is going, it was just like COVID all over again. I'm like, how does nobody else see this? And then you start to just really, it hits you in the face just how brainwashed everybody is. And it's frightening. It really is to watch in real time. It's frightening.
Dude, so, I want to interrupt you for just a second.
Yeah.
During that COVID crap, we were going into gas stations and we were standing 6 feet apart with our masks on. And then we were going up to a register that had plexiglass between us and the cashier. And we were touching a debit card machine that had plastic over it. Right. And then the next person would walk up and do the same thing. It was absurd. I went into work and they were pointing freaking temperature guns at our foreheads. Yeah. And they weren't even for humans. Like they were doing whatever they could to try to comply. And nothing about it made any damn sense. Nothing.
No. You just jarred another story out of my head from that time that I just remembered. I was up at Hunter Mountain with 3 or 4 of my friends that owned restaurants, and they obviously couldn't be in the city, so we all just went up there. Like I told people, I'm like, I'm not afraid of the virus. I'm afraid of the people because, again, in the city, people were legitimately just losing their minds. But I'll never forget, it was a week into the lockdown, right? So within, 2 weeks, let's say, after everything started. And this is where it really started to jump out at me that this was a planned event and that they were actively, purposely doing things to sell it. And that there was more people in on this than I could have even fathomed. We walked into Walmart because, of course, it's the only thing that's open, right? Not allowed to shop at independent stores, got to go to Walmart. And I walk in, and right at the front door, there is everyone knows
Dave, I'm listening. I just got to stand up for a second.
Yep. There's a pallet load, a giant pallet load of hundreds of boxes of those temperature gauges. And I looked at 2 of my friends and I said, how is that here already? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, before I was a developer, I made products in China. I did this for a living. Joe, if you order something today from a factory in China, it's going to be at least a month to 6 weeks before you can get it into a store. Yet Walmart had pallet loads of temperature gauges in their store a week after the pandemic started. And that is the kind of thing that screams, you're like, they knew this was coming. They somebody at Walmart ordered these laser temperature gauges 6 weeks ago, sometime in January or December of 2019, to have them on the floor now. And I remember saying it to my friend, and this is, this answer, right? You give somebody an analysis like that, you have all the experience and logic in the world to back it up, and they go, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I just told you that's not possible. They would have had to order this in December. Why, So yeah, man, there was so many different things. And to fast forward through it where I really started digging even harder, I think as many of us did, is we all thought that Biden was never going to get in. And, about a week after, not even after the inauguration, you start looking at it, you're like, wait a second, this is pre-recorded? There's continuity issues with the way they cut to the angles. They're showing you a blue sky when Fox News is on the roof across the street, and it's everything. And
Lady
I
Gaga
think it's like
dressed as the Hunger Games.
Yeah, the Hunger Games, and it, Jill's shoes changing, and the military turned their backs on people, and the uniforms being wrong, and
Pelosi,
violating the 20th Amendment by starting 13 minutes early. It's just, and then I think that was the second wave of where I felt like I got punched in the gut in a way of like, and I showed people. Once again, I showed people in my office, said, look at this video, watch when they change angles, 2 people disappear. Guess what the answer was? I don't know. And I'm just like, so I'm sure I looked like a crazy person at that point. And, but anyways, 21 and 22 went on. I was just diving to this 12, 15, 18 hours a day, trying to work on my regular job. And, an interesting thing happened in 22. I've dealt with anxiety and depression my whole adult life. But it was never like a problem, it was like, you have a week or two at a time where it kind of dogs you a little bit, but then it goes away, and, it's the cycle. And 2022 came along, and I got to a point where I was having trouble functioning. I was so, anybody that's ever dealt with anxiety where you don't worry, where it's not a specific thing you're worried about. It's like somebody jumps out of a closet, that feeling you get, and it just gets stuck, and it's impossible to think. It's impossible. So I was having a really hard time operating in my own job, as a developer and running construction sites. You got 9,000 things, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I stepped away from my business in the fall of 22. And I started going through trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. And many people have heard this, but the long story short is I went through every possible channel I could to try to figure out what was going on. As it turns out, because up until like 2020, they had me on, all these different SSRIs and clonazepam and all these, I was on like 6 different things. I finally decided in 22 to do a hair follicle test and check for metals poisoning, and it was off the charts.
Whoa.
And I learned that there's absolutely a mental aspect to anxiety and depression. We can't discount that. But when you introduce toxins like metals into somebody's neurological system, which is electrical, it's like pouring water on a circuit board, right? It literally fries the circuits. And it can cause you to experience, anxiety and brain fog and all these things, which is a physical manifestation of something that most people want to tell you is 100% mental. Not that there's not a mental aspect to it, there is. So that set me off on a whole nother journey. I'm still dealing with it. I tell people I still have days where it's not, I want to do more in this movement. I want to do more shows and more things, but I got to actually pace myself, unfortunately. And it's not something I actually speak about a lot, but that is the truth. I want to be able to do more, and it's difficult at times. But God's hand, right? If it wasn't for that happening, because I was so, I guess sick, if you want to call it, And I was so, I was like, well, what can I do? I need to do something with my time, right? I'm somebody that used to work, 18 freaking 20 hours a day like a dog. And then you suddenly not doing it. And that's not good for your mental health either. And so I started doing more. And that's when in 21, I had started News Treason. I was kind of just using it as a blog anonymously for my own stuff. And in 23, I had somebody, another platform that I was kind of helping out with, asked me to go on a podcast. And I'm like, no, I'm not a front of the camera type of guy. And, but I eventually just said, let me just listen to my gut and try it. And it did well. And, eventually that fast forward.
Turns out you are, you are a front, you are a front of the camera guy. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, man. It's still weird to me, but, yeah, and then that didn't work out after about 6 months, and that took us to February this year, and I wasn't gonna do anything, and then so many of these amazing people that are in the chat today flooded my email and my Telegram channel. They're like, "No, we were watching that other show, because of you. You gotta do something." And then Mark, my co-host, he's become such a dear friend to me, was one of the community members from our old show, and he called me up. He goes, "Look, we're going out. We're having lunch." And he sat me down. He's like, "You gotta do this." When thousands of people flood into a channel and tell you they want to do this, they want you to do this, you got to do it. So, yeah, Joe, it's like so many other people's stories. I think without all the adversity and the craziness, and the loss, loss of friends and income and all those other things that all go with it, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And, as difficult as it's been, and it's absolutely been hell at times, I'm sitting here with you. I get to be here in Orlando right now for this show, and
So
Mark is
cool.
here with us, and it's amazing. It really is. So again, I'm just thankful to everybody in the communities and all the people like you, Joe, that have really helped me along, and it's just amazing to have these relationships now. So it was very hard for me at times a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when people would tell me, this is happening for a reason and good things are going to come out of it and good people are going to come into your life, as I'm sitting there in bed by myself, like, for months at a time. And now it's happened and it's continuing to happen. And it's a blessing. It really is.
Bro, I almost feel bad that Mark's there. I should have invited him on too. He was really cool.
It's all good. Mark, as you know, was a 46 years at ABC News, and he brought all his cameras and lavalier mics down. So he's actually down at the show right now. They gave us a vendor table. He's nerding out with all the different cameras and everything. And so it's gonna be cool.
I might need Mark's. Go ahead.
Yeah, we get to film. We're gonna get to meet some good people and do some interviews and film some content that we're gonna run as a show. So yeah, man, he's in his element right now. It's cool to see.
I was gonna say I might need his help. I just so for my birthday, which was this Monday that just passed, Kim got me microphones because we're going to the Reawaken America tour, the last event here that's coming up, and we're also going to go to GART in Myrtle Beach, which I'm really excited about. But you want to talk about a ton of people to interview, so Kim, she's been hearing me talk about it. I want microphones so I can, and she just got me up, but I have no idea what I'm doing, bro. I have no clue what I'm doing.
I mean, so he'd be yeah, man. I'll connect you guys. He loves that stuff. He'd be 46 years of experience, so he'd be happy to help you. And yeah, you know what? We'll talk offline. I was thinking about we were actually just talking about going to the Myrtle Beach event last night. So I think that would be really cool if a bunch of us got there.
Yeah, hell yeah. Look, I was talking to John Patel Patriot, and I've been talking to Stormy and Abs, obviously. And there's a few sponsors that are fans. I'll just I won't say his name yet. He knows who he is. He's going to have a large spot on the show here shortly. But he's been offering to help, and everybody just is so kind and loving. And I was like, I can't say no. I'm gonna have to do backflips to pull it off because I'm out of time at work because of my son's court stuff. So I'm gonna actually offer some money for somebody to switch with me so I can pull it off. But we're going. So it's gonna be awesome. I would love for you guys to be there. It'd be great. Can I back you up before we get into like any type of content and stuff like that? Can we have a bit of a woo conversation? Do you think that this is gonna hurt people's feelings? I'm good at that. Do you think all that stuff? Look, the the inauguration, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty obvious that there was a white hat. Patriots are in control, full control aspect to that. I can't see it any other way at this point, to be honest with you. And we were all kind of led to believe that the COVID thing was an act of war, China and everything else. But I've now gone through many, many events, the largest of which would be the assassination attempt. You know, my perspective, I think we actually agree pretty well on what we believe happened with that that failed assassination attempt that many of us predicted, Stormy Patriot Joe, myself, others. And what I've come up with is that we're being given this controlled presentation of very real events, but it's being given to us in a show form so that we can digest it in a way that we don't go and burn our country down, right? For lack of a better description, just to say it quickly. There's part of me that's starting to believe COVID was the same thing. And I know that that's very hard for people to grasp. But when the deep state has something very real in mind, the patriots that are in full control have had more than a tendency, almost at 100% success rate, of taking over those psyops and using them to wake up the country. Project 2030, there's multiple examples of where they told us what they were going to do. However, we've come to this place where I believe the 2016 election was protected, and I don't believe it just because I'm making it up in my head. The drops told us that Donald Trump was asked to run for president with certain assurances that he would have a fair chance of winning. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what the drops say. And so if we believe that Hillary Clinton didn't write a concession speech because they never thought she would lose and Donald Trump won, well, then I would also have to believe things like 2020 was allowed to be stolen. Because if we have the power to protect with assurances 2016, well, then 2020 had to be allowed to happen. So now I'm considering COVID because Donald Trump told us how many times? They're using COVID to steal 2020. Okay, thanks for the intentional messaging, sir. I love you. I will vote for you. I am well aware that you are saving our country. You are giving us the gift of vision. But how am I not to look at the COVID epidemic and vaccine medical industry complete exposure as white hat operation? Do you see where my head's going? I want to see what your thoughts are on that.
I've been talking about this for a while now, and I'll throw myself under the bus for you. Yeah, absolutely. COVID absolutely was a white hat operation. Now, let me clarify that. I don't mean the entire thing was staged by the white hats. Let's put that out there right now.
Same as the assassination. You're right. Go. Sorry.
Right. But people need to understand that we are at war. Full stop. And I agree with everything you just said there. Without going too much into the backstory, I would say there are many, many things, not as many as we have over the last 3 years, but quite a number of them going back to 2015 that could prove to people that this movie we're watching didn't start on January 20th of 2021. This movie started in 2015. All right. A number of things. Why didn't Obama close Gitmo? Why didn't Obama do anything to stop Trump from coming in? Why did Obama 2 weeks after the election have an entire montage of Medal of Honor recipients like Bill Gates and Ellen DeGeneres and Oprah and De Niro? Like, it's literally like the white hat said, what video can we make right now to play in 5 years and make Obama look like a complete cabal stooge? Many things.
I got one for you. Do you remember when Obama sat and he said, if I could have a third term, I would put an earpiece in and I would talk to the guy pretending to be president, and I would have intentional messaging, 5th generation warfare to lead us to believe something was going on. and not just us, but
That's
the
right.
planet.
That's
Sorry,
absolutely
go ahead.
right.
We
That's
have a
absolutely
lag.
right. So I think that's I say that because uh, so much of understanding maybe how somebody like Joe and I think is realizing that you have to first you have to establish some basis of reality. Like what lens are you looking at this through? I'm looking at it through what Q told us, as you alluded to, that the military had asked Trump to run, that they had, as Q said, had given him assurances, alluding to the fact that he could win and everything else like that. And there's a number of other drops, and what we just talked about that would very much point to the fact that the military had Obama in check at some point between 2012 and 2015. And so you extrapolate that out, and then you get to 2017 and you look at all the documentation that people like John Harold and Derek Johnson have done with continuity of government, the federal continuity directives. It becomes pretty clear that we've been under some stage of a continuity of government military operation since like 2015, maybe sooner, or maybe longer than that. So then that's the foundation of the lens I'm looking at through COVID. So now let's think about COVID and what people have to do. And I'll say it up front, I've lost a ton of friends. I've lost business. I know people who have died during COVID from the vax, everything else. I am not immune to any of this. But you do have to take that emotion out of it, right? Q talks about that emotion clouds logic, emotion clouds judgment. It's an actual Q drop. So you look at the White Hats and you say, well, what was the temperature of the nation in 2020? Now, obviously, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that the Q team and Trump and all them knew it was coming. I mean, listen, if friggin' Alex Jones can predict it, then yeah, they knew. The NSA, whatever team it was, military intelligence, they knew. You have all the evidence. You have the patents going back to 2015 for the Rothschilds, for the testing system. You had, the tabletop event 2021, all these things. They knew it was coming. So what do you do when somebody's about to, punch you in the face and you can't stop it, right? You can't completely move out of the way. You're going to turn your cheek and let the blow glance off you. And that's the best they could have done. So what did they do? They knew it was going to come. They knew they couldn't stop it because, Joe, that Donald Trump didn't have control of the media back then. I mean, they were in a situation where Donald Trump, anything he said, they turned, hydroxychloroquine into bleach and all these other things. Anything he was going to say, if he had actually come out and tried to stop COVID, he would have been strung up. It would have sent the country into chaos. So that option didn't work. The option of bringing in the military kinetically, that's not going to work. What is the best option you can do? You can let it happen. You can use the military to completely mitigate and control as much death and destruction as possible. And I say that because it's a war. There is no way to avoid death and destruction. The best you can do is to mitigate it. And then the third piece of it is they hijacked it. They used their influence and whatever control they had to hijack the narrative. And there's a lot of different things we could get into that would point to that. But the bottom line for me, Joe, is if they didn't hijack the operation, you're talking about a group of people that operated in the shadows for hundreds of years, right? The fact that so many of us did notice it and wake up. I mean, I think when the history books are written, that COVID-19 is going to be considered the most important awakening event that's ever happened in human history, period. And it wouldn't have gone down this way if they had complete control of it. And then that spilled over into George Floyd. A lot of that was hijacked and on and on and on. But without, rambling on about the whole thing, I 100% agree with you. And unfortunately, I know that's difficult for a lot of people to wrap their head around. But it's just like an invasion. Like or you're being invaded. You're being invaded by a group of people with guns. And I say to you, Rambo, we got 3 routes we can take. None of them result in 0 deaths. They all do. One is 10 deaths, one's 100 deaths, one's 1,000 deaths. All else equal. What are you picking? The one with 10 deaths. Doesn't mean you don't have regard for human life. That's just the most you can minimize it. And I believe that's exactly what happened. And I think you could even add on to the vaccine part of it, which is, yes, there's been a lot of people that have passed away. Yes, we all know people who have. But if you really slow down and look at the numbers and look at some of the propaganda we've seen, just like many other things, that's been inflated to make it look worse than it is. Because the reality of the situation is, if that vaccine agenda was allowed to roll out unchecked, we would literally have piles of bodies in the street right now. Literally. I mean, that's how many people would be dead. So I agree with you, man. It's not a comfortable thing to say to many people, but you know, it did have to go down that way, and it's gonna prove to be one of the most important things, because I did a poll on our channel at one point, and I asked people, I said, when did you like fully get on board with Q and, you know, the awakening and everything that's going on?
Love this.
And I got to go back and look, but it was a large percentage said during 2020.
100%. All right. So look, I'm going to say this to everybody. I think because of the hotel Wi-Fi, we have like a 1.5 lag. So if I interrupt you, it's not on purpose. I think I'm trying to jump in between.
Yep.
And I've noticed that once or twice. So for everybody out there, if you're noticing that, that's why. We're now over 1,000 people.
Raise your hand if you got to get me. Pop your hand up, because then I'll actually see it. Yeah.
We have, you said this when we were talking offline. It is amazing that we're having over 1,000 people come in here to the show in the middle of the day, right? This isn't like a primetime show. This is a middle of the day show because of the way that my life works. And for over 1,000 of you to be in here to have this conversation with us is something that I am unbelievably grateful for. You guys have already killed it as far as the thumbs up are concerned. We're well over 200. Both Dave's show and this show from yesterday have made the leaderboard on Rumble. If you guys could continue to push that, it means the world, and it puts more eyes on these conversations and makes the family grow. So I'm just throwing it out there real quick to hit that thumbs up. It means everything. And you just talked a minute ago, Dave, about military was the only way, right? We've all heard that in the drops, and there many drops are interpreted different ways, right? I think that certain things were put out in messaging, and the clip I'm about to play is something everybody's probably seen, but I want to play it because of perspective. Because when you talk about the military is the only way, we think boots on the ground, fatigues, tanks. We think taking over cities, like if the military, like what martial law, right? And I don't think that's what they meant. And I think we were told that special operations, 4POG, 8POG, right? Literal psychological warfare. We were shown in the 4POG videos, people scrolling on their phones. The war is in our minds. It's not kinetic on the streets, even though there's been signs of that too. But I want to play this now again, because Ezra just put himself in the limelight this week when I wasn't doing shows. So I want to play Ezra's clip where he hit the Delta the other day on a very small Anon account and said that, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but Q's bullshit, basically, he said, right? And he did it on a freaking Delta. What was it, 5-year, Dave? I think it was.
It was a 6-year, actually.
6-year. Okay. 6-year Delta.
Yeah.
Ezra Cohen-Watnick shoves himself into the spotlight by saying Q is bullshit on a Delta where it says literally in the drop, just Ezra Cohen-Watnick. So now consider that the military was the only way part when you listen to him talk about JFK's ideas about special operations forces.
Started the process of formalizing what we have long known, the fundamental role of U.S. special operations in defense and foreign policy, by elevating special operations forces to a level on par with military departments as authorized and directed by Congress. As we enact these reforms, we follow the vision of President John F. Kennedy, who predicted the rise of special operations nearly 60 years ago. He foresaw, quote, another type of war, new in its intensity, ancient in its origin, that would require a whole new kind of strategy, a wholly different kind of forces which are too unconventional to be called conventional forces, which are growing in number and importance and significance. President Kennedy gave these remarks at the opening of the nuclear age, when the Pentagon was primarily organized to plan and direct large conventional operations against superpowers, not special operations short of overt declared conflict. The global demands for special operations forces then and now has confirmed President Kennedy's foresight. And now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of special operations forces. It is fitting that we are again entering an era of great power competition as we gather to affirm the importance of the special operations community. Then as now, I know special operations forces will play a vital role. And by the historic reforms we have enacted today, we will ensure special operations forces has a civilian advocate commensurate to the secretaries of the other military departments. I am honored to serve as your service secretary. Thank you very much.
Military was the only way.
Yeah,
Kind of
it's
brilliant.
that was that kind of flew under the radar at that point, because that was, I think, November 18th, 2020, and everybody was so focused on the election. But that was an important day, an important speech. That was part of Trump's restructuring of the reporting structure of the entire Department of Defense, to basically streamline it for what we're in now, the continuity of government and devolution. I know John and Derek, both those guys, have touched on it. And you see Chris Miller sitting there in the front. But what's interesting, Joe, is when he's speaking about JFK, and I think one of the reasons I've connected with you so well and your work is because I think we all go through this. Like when you finally wake up and you completely get snapped out of that matrix programming and the mass formation psychosis that we've all lived in some degree. And then you go back and you revisit things that happened in the past. It's like, it blows your mind because you look at everything with a whole new lens now, right? So he said JFK, one of the speeches that I always point to that, I guess they left that chapter out of my history book and my teacher's history book, all the actual truth about JFK and what he was actually trying to do with restoring constitutional money, Executive Order 1110 and or 1111, whatever it is, and his fight against the deep state. This gets glanced over. He had a speech in American University in 1963. They call it a strategy of peace. And he said, quote, "For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day." And that was 1963. So
literally what we're going through right now.
Yep. Everything. And by the way, who created the emergency broadcast system to go around the media? JFK. He knew this day was going to come.
I don't know if you played this on your show. I want to play before we get into, look, I want to touch on what happened yesterday on the show with Stormy Patriot Joe predicting something that came up directly after the show, just so we can show how much the drops can tell us what's coming. But I want to play one of the Cash clips from his interview. I haven't got to touch on this yet. I don't know if you play these on your show. I was working, so I was stopping in, but I wasn't able to watch everything. Did you see when he basically admitted that he's still serving?
Yeah,
bro.
I didn't get a chance to play this on my show, but you as usual, you caught this. This is amazing. Go for it.
Listen to Cash very carefully here, and watch his face after he admits it.
I guess I'm in politics, but like I never was, right? And then I got out and people are like, "You're in politics." I'm like, well, I've never run for office. I'm never going to run for office. I'm not in the RNC, the DNC, or whatever party, this, that, or the other things, apparatus. But I guess just because of the close positions I've held with the president and continuing to serve,
what?
I've learned that whatever
Hold on, I'm
However
doing
it
that
was
again.
done, close positions I've held with the president and continuing to serve. I've learned that whatever or however it was done is not Donald Trump's way.
I freaking love that. What's that mean,
I
dude?
love Cash Patel because he can't. I've been watching him for 3 years, and I'm like, this guy knows. He knows everything, and there are many times he can't keep a straight face. Like he's like the cat that ate the canary. It's.
He said it. He said
I
it,
don't-
and he looked around the room like, I wonder if they heard that.
he does stuff like that all the time, Rambo. There was, I know you know this. There was he was on Gutfeld one night, which, by the way, I know a lot of people are anti Fox News, but that whole show, they're part of it. They drop 17s all the time. It's the comic relief portion of the wake up operation. And Cash was on there one day and they were talking about the internet, and he goes, "Well, yeah, because I kind of sort of run Google right now." And he just glanced over it, and I was like, and again, he did like the smirk, like he literally said he runs Google right now. Some of these little comms like that, he's a riot, man. He really is.
Yeah. To me, that was a blatantly obvious tell. He straight up told us that look, the only position he technically has right now, the only thing he is supposed to be doing is being on the board of True Social. That is not what he just referred to.
Yeah.
There's not even a chance. So when he said that, I was like, what? It was awesome.
In the same interview where he's talking about continuity of government.
Yeah. You know what? I wish I had. You know what we should play first? Look, a lot of these people here are your crew, so maybe we don't need to play it. But it was really cool the other night at work to be able to catch that. Look, I didn't even have the stuff that Stormy Patriot Joe and Absolute had put out. I didn't know about the prediction yet. Like I saw their show on the way home from work, but I was taking phone calls. It was playing on my, I put my phone up on the dashboard and I listened and so I didn't grasp fully what they were saying. And I feel bad that I didn't. Now that I watch it back, I'm like, oh my gosh, they literally predicted that there would be a false flag event. And the next morning there's a freaking shooting. But that's all in hindsight compared to what I'm about to say. So I'm at work and I'm watching Hannity and Trump do this town hall. And Hannity gets up and does that really weird 1630 announcement, right? And I'm like, that was odd. Like, I realized that he's hinting at Kamala Harris doing a very short interview. I've now gone back and looked. There was nothing that was 16 minutes and 30 seconds long. Nothing. It was 40-minute interview that got whittled down to 16 minutes and 44 seconds. So for Hannity to say not only 1630, but 1629, and for those drops to be embedded in each other and to be about a school shooting that literally happened that morning, that freaking Joe and Abs predicted through the drops, is mind-blowing. And then for me to send it to you and you to present it the way you did on your show, it was just, everything just worked. Like it was literally God's hand.
Yeah, Rambo, I know I thanked you when I did it, but I just have to say it again because that whole series of events was probably one of the coolest things I've ever participated in real time, and that's what I'm talking about. Like what you guys saw on the air the other night, that's how it was working for the OG Anons when Q would put a new drop out, right? It wasn't like, let me pound my chest because I got to it first and I have intel. No. Everybody would just get together and figure it out and post. And it was so much fun, man, because I'm sitting there. Mike King's doing a banger presentation on a really important article, and I'm sitting there. I'm missing the scroll on the screen because I'm like looking at the phone. But the way, no, I'm glad. No, please don't. But that's the point. Don't ever hesitate to do that because like that's what this is all about, right? And it was just, yeah, it was really cool. And then to have Abs and those guys, I posted it on X, and then have all you guys jump in and add to the thread. Like that's what it's supposed to be about. And yeah, again, kudos to you, man. First of all, for catching that. You're on it all the time, and to Abs and Stormy, because yeah, my mind nearly exploded when I watched them do that decode the day before, and I'm like, oh my god, they called the shot. And then I know I know what you have coming up next. It's even better. Um, but I think that's just a prime example of how things are supposed to work, right? It's not about ego and who puts it on their X account or their show first. That's what I respect about all the different people that we work with is everybody's on the same page and it's about getting the info out.
It is a prime example of stronger together because if I didn't send that to you, I wouldn't have been aware that they predicted it. And we wouldn't have had all the lead up to the show that we then did the next day, and which wouldn't have led to the prediction that I'm about to show you guys. So most of the people here, I'm sure were here yesterday. So what I'm about to show you is just reiterating what happened yesterday, but the mind-blowing event is what happened right after the show. So bear with me. This is what happened on the show yesterday.
I was just gonna say, like, if you show the rest of the cues that I put with that Jesse post. So, you know, we're talking about on the bottom there about the background. So we're gonna start looking into the background and the kid's father. We're gonna watch the news and see what comes out. He's supposedly a hunter or something, the father. So we'll have to find out more about that. Now, what's
All right. So that happens on the show yesterday. I'm just going to leave the screen up. I'll work through it this way. So here's the actual drops. Hopefully you can see it a little better if I do it this way. So this is what he's talking about. Coincidence, another mainstream media narrative change upon release, damaging news. People are waking up. Trace the background of the shooter. Focus on the father. Okay. So shortly after the show,
The arrest of Colin Gray just hours ago. We have team coverage of the Appalachia High School shooting tonight. Eric Mock has the story of what made a teacher so special. But first, Denise Dillon live outside of Appalachia High School with more on the arrest of the suspected shooter, Colt Gray's father. Denise?
what?
Yeah, standing right here on the school grounds, the GBI director said 54-year-old Colin Gray has now been arrested in connection with the shooting here at Appalachia High School.
Holy shit.
The GBI has arrested Colin Gray, age 54, in connection to the shooting here at Appalachia High School. Colin is Colt Gray's father that was arrested yesterday.
You gotta be kidding me.
With the following: 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to children. Mr. Gray, these charges stem from Mr. Gray knowingly allowing his son, Colt, to possess a weapon.
GBI Director Chris Hosey said Colin Gray's charges are directly connected with the actions of his son. 14-year-old Colt Gray is charged with 4 counts of felony murder. ATF and GBI agents were at the home where Colin lives Wednesday, searching for any evidence that could give them more information about what led up to the shooting at Appalachia High School. The FBI says both Colin and his son Colt were interviewed last year in Jackson County after the FBI received anonymous tips about online threats of a school shooting at an unidentified location and time. Authorities determined then that there was no probable cause for an arrest. The GBI director went on to talk about various other threats that were made at schools across the state Thursday. He said these actions are taken very seriously and law enforcement acted quickly and made arrests. While the investigation into the mass shooting at Appalachia continues, Barrow County Sheriff Judd Smith says the community continues to heal.
We're heartbroken.
I'll answer that.
A person brought a gun into a school, committed an evil act, and he took lives, and he injured many other people, not only physically but mentally. But I'm proud of Barrow County. I'm proud of our superintendent. I'm proud of these teachers. I'm proud of these schools, and I'm proud of where I live. And we'll get past this.
Hold on, I want to answer that question before we get into this. What's so funny? I have been through so much pain in my life. We lost 49 kids in my 4 years of high school. I was a homeless drug addict who has been through more trauma than most, right? We all have our own story. I'm certainly not putting myself above anybody else that's been through their own. However, when I'm watching something that seems to be predicted, I am not discrediting or being disrespectful to any loss of life or any of look, false flag doesn't mean fake. So I'm not sitting here saying somebody didn't die. That's not what I've said on anything that I've talked about. My reaction in that laughter is, oh my gosh, how is it that we were told this before it happened? Again, I mean, no disrespect at all. So, but the connections and my, you know what my laugh is at, Dave? Q is a LARP. It's a fat kid in his basement. HBO told us that it was all being done by what's his face or whatever, right? Everybody has smashed and tried to destroy and discredit Donald Trump, people I love like Michael Jackson, the Q drops, all of us Anons, and for something to line up so perfectly that you can call that there's going to be a false flag event the night before, and you can call that the father's going to be the one that's going to be underneath the microscope the day prior, brings validity, just like we did Q proofs yesterday. And so my laugh is because that's hysterical to me. We stood strong against everyone that tried to discredit us. And at this point, it is freaking hysterical. It's undeniable, in my opinion, and that makes me laugh. So I meant no disrespect, all love. Go ahead, Dave. What do you think? That's crazy, right? You're muted. You're muted.
I would echo all that, but once again, I guess I'll throw myself under the bus here. I don't know what happened there. I'll tell you what I do know. You saw, as Stormy and Ab showed the day before, comms coming from the Trump family that hit an exact delta that said, stay vigilant. You then had the shooting take place, and it fits every pattern of what Q has told us about how the CIA and the FBI handles these things. Then later that night, you have Sean Hannity, who is mentioned many times in the Q drops, changing the length of an interview twice to hit 2 back-to-back Q drops that speak about the pattern of school shootings. Okay, so that right there, without any other information, would lead you to believe that Trump and the military and the Q team knew this was going to happen. So personally, do I believe that Donald Trump and the Q team let 9 or 10 children get slaughtered to prove a point? No, I don't. So that should bring at least some question into, I'm not saying nothing happened, no one got hurt, but this is a narrative war. And just like the assassination, as crazy as it might seem, I personally, that, you know, and the other piece of the pattern is I'm not that important. News Treason and Channel 17, we have 30,000 Rumble followers. We're not Tucker Carlson, right? I find it curious that out of 360 million people in this country, that whenever I say something that's against the narrative of a false flag like the assassination or this, I somehow have 6 people in my chat group that know the people personally. I don't think that's that, you know, I question that. And then as you show me that piece, the other thing that jumps out at me, and I guess it's because I used to be an operations guy, so I tend to think in the steps of logistics. How did they indict the father in 24 hours? You know, listen, the shooter, I get that's a right. That's a prima facie, you know, first person thing. People saw him do it. That's fine. You put the guy in cuffs, you take him away. How on earth did detectives pull together evidence, go to a district attorney, you know, get an arrest warrant, have it approved by a judge in 24 hours? People need to question this. That's not how it works. Joe, tell me if I'm wrong, but you know, a secondary that's a stretch to indict somebody's father because their kid shot up a school. Yes, it's happened once before. I bet you the last time it happened, it didn't happen in 24 hours. You have to make a case before you can go and arrest somebody.
The kid isn't even on the stand yet. He's not even on the stand yet. So maybe the police, I guess there's a possibility, because I thought about this too, Dave. Maybe there's a possibility that he was questioned, grilled in some sort of interrogation room where he said, my daddy let me have the gun. It's the only thing I can think of, because otherwise you're 100% over the target.
But I don't think that would, even if he did that, that doesn't rise to the level of being able to get an arrest warrant approved by a judge.
I agree with you. I agree. And you know what? I'm going to go a step further, right? So let's take, because one of the things I think we face when we end up, look, we're all getting very good at this, and the drops are becoming more and more clear. It's almost like you're focusing in. So sometimes I think that there is a process. Me and Flynn Jr. got in a little argument about it because of the assassination thing, right? So I processed my emotions very quickly. I literally walked out into the driveway almost in tears when Trump was shot in the ear. And I went through an emotional moment, and I did a little 360, and I prayed for a second, and I collected myself, and I said, hold on a second, right? And I went to the drops. And it took me very, very quickly. And most people, and I'm not saying that doesn't make anyone any better on either side, but most people, when they go through an emotional, look, I deal with it in my relationship. She does not process her emotion. It takes like 3-4 days sometimes to process emotions. For me, I'm human. I have emotions. I love very deeply. I'm try to be kind to everyone I meet because I love and respect human beings. Those are all emotional traits. However, if I'm given something of shock value, I love President Trump as much as anyone else in this movement. There's probably nobody that's posted Trump's words more than me. I still was able to walk around, pray for a second, process, and go back and try to critically think about the situation. Well, I have a tendency of doing that too quick. So people will have emotional reactions to my posts because I'm doing it too fast. That's sometimes why I think they say 48 or 72 hour rule, because you probably shouldn't just jump out there. Not only because you can be incorrect, but a lot of times because you can affect other people emotionally. And I think that's why Flynn Jr. slapped me on the wrist. I don't agree with him. However, he may have been right in that aspect, right? So I want to separate ourselves from that one, because people are still thinking that there's 2 teachers dead and there's 2 kids that are dead. And it's very well possible, probably more likely than not, that is completely true. Like I said, false flag doesn't mean fake. But now let's look at a different situation that there's been some time between and isn't so emotionally attached. It's even emotional the other direction where you want it to be true. Okay. So do you remember this, right?
Revere their service and that of their families. But now to today's announcement. Vice President Harris and I were joined by members of our COVID-19 response team, Dr. Tony Fauci, our Chief COVID Medical Advisor, Javier Becerra, our nominee for Secretary of Health.
So just so you know my life, as
Dr.
we're waiting
Rick
to do
Murphy,
this, I
our
just
nominee for
agreed
Surgeon
to
General. Dr. Rochelle
please send it
Walensky, she's going to
guy.
be the director of the Centers for Disease
All right.
Control and Prevention.
So for anyone that hasn't heard me do that the other 17 times that I've done it, that is Hunter Biden's voice on a hot mic in the middle of Joe Biden's speech on the White House YouTube page, and it is still there.
Yep.
Okay. Well, yesterday, in case we needed any more confirmation that we're watching some level of Patriot control, I like to call it full and a movie, we get this.
Not know at this point whether this is the result of some sort of plea deal. It would be reasonable to assume that there has been some deal done between the defense and the prosecution to bring about this change in plea to guilty. The question is now, what kind of sentence might he face? There were
Here comes
9
my laugh
charges,
again.
remember, that he faced here. 3 of those were felony charges, punishable in total by up to 17 years behind bars. So the question will be going forward, if he is now about to plead guilty, what will the sentence be? Another big question, of course, Harris, that everybody will now be asking is, will President Biden either pardon his son on this guilty plea to these tax evasion charges and indeed the gun conviction he got earlier this year in Delaware, or will he perhaps commute both of those sentences? Now, President Biden has previously said, Harris, he would do neither of those things. But here's the caveat, and it's an important one. President Biden said that, no pardon, no commutation, before he decided not to run again for the presidency. Right. So breaking news, we have a guilty plea in this tax evasion case. We now wait to see what the terms of the deal, if indeed there is a deal, exactly those terms are, Harris.
Yeah, and Jonathan, as I've been saying this hour, all bets are off when you're not at the top of the ticket and you don't owe anybody anything. And I believe it was Kerry Urban who pointed out it'll just be a line on his Wikipedia page, maybe, if he commutes his sentence or pardons him altogether. So what does he have to lose as a father? Sure. So he may very well go back on that campaign promise because he's not campaigning for himself any longer. Maximum sentence, 17 years for what he faces today. What this does do, Jonathan, is speed up the timeline. Because now you're going to get a sentence faster. You're not trying to fight.
Dave, before you go, because I want to hear what you have to say about this. I want to say one thing, because the comments I've gotten are all, he's not going to do any time. Joe's going to pardon him. Look, okay, that's all fun to talk about. We can talk about it all you want. The message here is patriots are in full control. It's literally a sign of the show and the movie. He is on a hot mic on YouTube from a video that Joe Biden did almost 4 years ago, saying that he took a plea. Now he is pleading guilty and facing 17 years. The result doesn't matter. They just told you it's a movie. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'll take it a step further. How could anybody watching, that's a Q follower at this point, with all due respect to everybody, think that Joe Biden has the ability to do anything for Hunter? You can't sit here and say the military is in control and continuity of government and then think that anything that was in that Fox report is anything more than a complete fabricated script. The Q drops do the word movie. For people, I know people still get triggered by that, but when we say that, it appears 34 times in the Q drops. And there's literally a drop that says you are watching a scripted movie. We didn't make that up. The Anons didn't make that up. There's a lot of things that go around Q world that was made up by truthers. That's not one of them. And no. Joe, the thing about the 17s, because I guess I've kind of developed a reputation for spotting those out. Don't ask me how. It's not what I thought I was going to be doing when I grew up, but that's where we are right now. And it's also where they appear. I think people think that we go online and we just look for anything that's got a 17 in it and post it. No, it's where they put it. It's in headline news. We could ramble them off, but you go back even a couple of years. The budget is out of control. How much is it? $1.7 trillion. Oh, Hunter, the Biden family got all this money from China. How much do they get? $1.7 million. Kamala is going to start this new slush fund. How much is it going to be? $1.7 trillion. It's where they appear. That's the pattern that it is. It's not just that there's a ton of them in the headlines. It's where they appear. And Rambo, I got to be honest with you, man. I think you guys touched on it the other day. And I concur. I am now seeing on X lots and lots and lots of maybe we call them Alex Jones awaken. Like they don't follow Q, but they're awake to know that things are going on. And they're saying, what the hell? Why am I seeing the number 17 everywhere? What is going on? It's getting so obvious at this point. It's crazy. And one of the things that I know you've touched on, I think we're all in agreement on is, again, just logical inference, man. Hunter Biden's got a laptop that literally has the keys to take down the entire deep state cabal. And people still believe that he left it with a blind man at a shop in Delaware?
That's what I was going to say.
Really?
That's so funny.
Like, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. Like, you're in that club. Your father is the president or the vice president or even a senator. They have people for that. You don't go to the corner store, like, all strung out and leave a laptop there with somebody you don't know. It's that kind of thing that has kept the deep state from getting discovered for 100 years, because you grow up in that. You just know, it's common sense. I mean, Rambo, I don't think I'd leave my laptop with somebody right now. And it's not that I don't have kitty porn on it, but personal stuff, files, financial things, I wouldn't leave it, let alone something like that. So, and that video, why was that video left up? Why?
Oh no, Dave. I'm gonna wait for you. I'm hoping it's just your
Good.
Wi-Fi from you. Yeah, there you are. You there?
What? Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes. You're not moving, but we hear you.
Why was that video left there from January 2021 until now? There's millions of us at this point that have circulated that around social media. Why is it still there?
In Baja with Cheryl. This is my first day off in 17 months. We're spending 3 days down here. And it's...
All right. Hold on. Keep going. Keep talking, Dave.
I mean, it's getting to a fever pitch right now. And the Hunter Biden thing, it should be obvious to everybody. I mean, that's really all I can say about it. I mean, but that the one thing, and I know there's a lot of new people coming into these different channels, so it is worth repeating, is that when you find yourself getting pulled into some of these emotional narratives, like, oh, that's it, he's not going to do any jail time. Well, you're contradicting yourself. You can't say we're under continuity of government and we're watching a movie and the military's in charge, and at the same sentence say that Joe Biden has any control to do anything. I mean, Rambo, did you see the story the other day that they now want us to believe that the Secret Service that was protecting Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, had 2 hours of training?
Anybody that believes that, I have a bridge in Baltimore to sell you. He's literally the most protected man on the planet, and people are believing that his Secret Service had 2 hours of training. Come on, guys. Look, one more example to show that we're not crazy.
2 terms as the Attorney General of California, prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. And 4 years of being vice president, I'll tell you, one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone.
That sounded just like I've been in Washington, D.C. 17 times.
Yeah. Oh, man, you guys had me. Stormy cracks me up, man. When you guys played that clip, the one of him saying 17 5 times in 45 seconds, that's funny on its own. But when Stormy's there in the background counting as it goes on, 1, 2, 3.
Did you see the clip where she said thank you 17 times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No one else on the planet counted her thank yous, but I did.
Joe, can you pop my screen up for a sec? I mean, this is what I mean in terms of where it is, right? It's not just that it's in the headline, but look at this. We know we're getting to the COVID exposure. 17 indicted and 11 $1.7 million COVID tax relief. Yahoo News, top story. It's where they inject it, and I think I want to get your take on this.
Okay,
you got a second for this?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
All right, let me just see if I can find it.
This is a
Give me 1 second to find it. Let me pull my screen down for a second.
Go
I
ahead.
have it right here.
Yeah,
but
here, I got you. I'll bring it down. While Dave's looking, guys, same thing. You guys are killing it too, by the way. But the way it looks, you guys are going to get us back on that leaderboard again tomorrow. So 1,300 people in here on Rumble. If you guys could hit that thumbs up, means the absolute world. I'm stoked that we're having this streak over there on the leaderboard. Thank you very, very much. Let me just make sure we didn't miss anybody that supported. All right, go ahead, Dave.
So, you and I share the same theory that the media, the mainstream media, and a lot of the big corporations that were, potentially affected by the different executive orders 13818, 13848,
right,
have some degree of white hat influence and control. This is one where I've been posting about this, and actually say it already. I've been posting about this for about a year, and just like you do, I don't have all the answers.
Uh-oh. Your Wi-Fi, your hotel Wi-Fi is jacked. We're going to wait a second. I'm sure he'll come back. Usually these hotels have good Wi-Fi, but they roll. Like the signal rolls a little bit. There you are. You're back.
You got me? Okay. So I have a logical question. I've posted it many times like you. I ask people because I could be wrong. Why is it? You got me?
Yep.
Okay. This was just last week, Labor Day week, right? Every story I'm about to show you was during Labor Day, and this has been going on. I've noticed it for at least a little over a year now. Amazon, the 17 best non-Amazon Labor Day weekend deals. Wired Magazine, the 17 best early Labor Day deals. CNET, the 17 best Labor Day sleep deals. CNN, the best 17 deals on wardrobes. Tom's Guide, Amazon slashes prices on Kindles, 17 deals I'd shop. And Clever, 17 best Labor Day furniture sales. And that was just in 1 week.
Here's my take, Dave. I'm going to tell you.
Why did we change from top 10 and top 15 and top 20 to top 17 all of a sudden?
That's what I was going to say. So I'm very in depth in my research, and sometimes I'll go to Google and I'll just put 17, hit news, and see how many news stories say 17 in them. And so it can be interpreted that I'm looking for them, because I am. So I've also gone and typed in 16. I've also gone in and typed in 15 and 14 and 13. And there's stories, but not nearly as many.
Right. That, and it continued. I'll give you one more. Just 17 high energy bars, 17 lessons have given me, it's in there every day. And that's a little bit less obvious, but again, these are top lists. So the Cleveland.com is writing about their top 17 high energy bars. Why is it top 17? Rambo, same thing. That's exactly the research I did. I looked around. And I'm genuinely asking. And to date, on X and Telegram, I've never gotten a logical explanation. Because again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've looked around. I'm like, is there a significance to the number 17 in the year 2024 or 23 outside of the Q operation? Is it the Chinese year of the 17? Like, what is it that I'm missing? Is it something astrologically? I haven't come up with a reason, but I just thought that was a little sidebar. I wanted to get your take on that, because I know you do this. You use a lot of the same thought processes that I do. And, that's a tangential argument, I know, but that's what I see.
I can add to it, Dave. First of all, let me say this is a huge deal. Viera 32940, the $50 Rumble rant. Dave and Joe, great. You have to do this in prime time. You'll get 5,000 viewers. Well, thank you very much. Share the show out. The replay is always here. And I'll encourage anybody watching the replay, please do the same thing, because right now I can't wait to look and see if we're climbing on that leaderboard list, because it's only the second time for this show to be there. So it's still exciting to me. I know a lot of guys go there all the time. I should act like I've been in the end zone before, but I haven't. This is only the second time. So it's cool. Plausible deniability. You know how Trump always talks out of both sides of his mouth? While we're talking about 17s, every time that I can find a president goes to some major sporting event, or a team wins, say, the Super Bowl, and they come to the White House and we do a presentation, they always have the number of their presidency, right? So, Joe Biden would be 46. The jersey he would hold up with the team would say 46. Well, Donald Trump's presidency in 2017, for plausible deniability, Trump decided to use the year. And so everybody will say, no, it's just because it was 2017. Okay, that's cool. Except for that, why the rest of the presidents use their number of presidency. Plausible deniability, except for that he's telling you.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And it's not just one. There's many jerseys that he did. And again, somebody give me that answer. The best answer I heard was somebody tried to tell me that it was the year 2017, so he used the number 17. Well, that would hold true for 2017, but what about 18 and 19?
Did he do it in 18 and 19? Because that would be.
I believe so. There's a montage somewhere. I'd have to. Ooh, now you dropped out. You there? There we go.
Yeah, we still see you.
You know, I'd have to look again, but it's hard to explain, and that's why I think the mistake people make is I try to say all the time, you have to look at this stuff like a giant puzzle. Like you can explain away one or two of these things, but when you put them all together the way kind of what we're doing here, it's really difficult to deny that it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, here, this is the same story.
You got me? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I still got you. This is the same story, CBS News, but there it is in the headlines again. Hunter Biden could face 17 years. 17 years if convicted. It's just everywhere, and I feel like they're doing it on purpose.
I'm sure you've seen this, but it might be fun given what we're talking about. Do you want to play the Trump 2.5 minute 17 montage video?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have it? Pull it right up. Yeah, by all means. I love doing this. Look, so this is why I do this, because I do it all the time, Dave. I go back. I have some old clips lined up in case we ran out of stuff. I always have old clips because hindsight is 20/20. If we just move on with the news cycle, we are being led around by our emotions. We have been given Easter eggs for freaking decades at this point. If you constantly remind yourself of the Easter eggs that were dropped, it makes the news cycle so much more clear.
Yep.
You don't allow that brain, because this process is painful. It truly is, right? The process is painful, but and it almost has a tendency to want to suck you back into the matrix, because the plan is for a reason. It's for the people that never broke free of the matrix. So these examples and reminding ourselves of what we've seen allow you to take that 40,000 foot view and see the show for what it is. With it comes great responsibility, because the plan and the movie are happening for a reason, to motivate and to expose. It's literally an exposure campaign. They are showing you very real things. It's just that you don't have to be feared up. I think that's the ultimate message when you look at it the way we do. But you're allowed to see it and know that it's being taken care of, but we have to make sure it never happens again, right? So I can do that by seeing this as a movie without all of the fear and anxiety that lead me to drug addiction and all the other crap that I've been through, right? So for me, it's brilliant, but it comes with a greater responsibility to further that plan, right? Military-civilian alliance. There's a reason the drops say that. Yeah, by all means, let's do that. Bring that thing up.
And they know it. And America will be a free nation once again. We're not a free nation right now. We don't have free press. We don't have free anything. In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution.
I don't know what you had in mind, but here we stand on opposing sides. Let's go to war. Let's go to war!
Who are the 17%? Who are they? Who the hell are the 17%? Anybody in here from 17%? Don't raise your hand if anybody. 17, 17, 17, 17, 17. 17, 17, 17, and 2. 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17. No, I think I might have been in Washington. 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17. I hung up the phone and just 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17. So you had 17 Republicans plus me. 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17. 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, planning it for 17 years.
There it is. Ah, that's a great point. Plus me. 2 plus. Donald Trump. That's a great video by Alpha Punisher.
Yeah, it is. And Rambo, I know we actually, I mean, we have a great time and we get a kick out of this at this point. But in all seriousness, it wasn't that same montage that Alpha Punisher did, but another one like it in 2020. That was actually one of the things that got me to really pay attention to Q. So it was another montage like that. I remember sitting there in my office, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, oh my God. You know, and it also brings up a logical question of like, how easy is it to actually, unless you've actually been clipping that for 7 years, how did somebody go back and find all that? There's not an AI that can search through videos and find a 17 yet. Well, at least we don't have access to it.
I could tell you my archive's pretty extensive. I could probably do it.
You could probably do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I see what you're saying though, because there is certain people I think that have put out videos and content that there's no chance in hell that they didn't have some sort of guidance or be placed somewhere to do so.
Yep.
I think that you're right. But that would be what 4POG is.
Mm-hmm.
They straight up told us anything we touch is a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It's an information war. I would challenge anyone to go find Donald Trump saying another number and put a montage together.
Right. That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. Or, you know, even same thing like you just said, the logic you use with searching for 17s. I would love to see somebody find me another number that appears that many times in critical headlines related to vote counts in Congress, headlines related to the budget, related to the border. You're not going to find another number that appears as much as 17 or 1.7 or 170, just like we've been showing you. And Rambo, not to go back to beat to death what we were talking about before with the false flags, the assassination, the Georgia shooting. But I did want to add one thing because you brought up the fourth psychological operations group, and those videos are critical because even in those little videos, they essentially tell you what we already know, which is anything and everything you can imagine and then more they can do, and they have for many, many years. But I always point to this, the Newsweek article with the 60,000 man secret army. That is something that every Anon should read. And I say that because that's an in-depth article. It gives you all the receipts on it. It tells you they can fabricate identities. They can fabricate social media channels. They can fabricate everything. They create entirely new identities for these people. And the reason I say that, going back to what we were talking about with a couple of these false flags, is yes, we absolutely pray and think of anybody who may have been harmed in any of these events. But just because there may or may not have been people injured should not prevent us from doing our job as American citizens, which is to analyze and question everything that's put in front of our faces, because we know how much we can be manipulated. And when you understand what that 60,000 man secret army is, how long it's been in place, going back to about 2012 when we know the military started to step in with Obama. You connect all those dots, and then you understand in order for all the different things that Rambo and people like him talk about in terms of theorizing what we're living through, you would need 60 to 100 or 200,000 people working behind the scenes to pull it off. And when you understand that, then you have to realize that it doesn't matter how many people come into your chat or your channel and tell you they knew XYZ person, they witnessed XYZ, because if you understand the secret army and how special operations works, if your own mother was part of the secret army and got shot during one of these events and was an actor, you wouldn't know it. If your own wife was part of that secret army and had to play a role of doing something in a false flag event, you wouldn't know it and you'd believe it's real. So I'm not saying that proves anything. I'm not saying people did or didn't, but that is why we question that, because anything and everything is possible, including even watching the person next to you get shot. They could use a squib packet and their chest would explode. In an emotional moment, you're going to say you watched somebody get shot and you didn't. So I don't mean that to any specific event, but that's why people like Rambo and I talk about it this way, is because as much as emotion might come into it, anything and everything is possible. And quite frankly, it has to be that way in order to pull something off like this for this long of a period of time.
Perfect example, Dave. I've had so many people. I'll just give one example. I was in the 4th row, J13, when Donald Trump got shot in the ear. You can't convince me it wasn't real. Everybody was screaming. The chaos that was going on, the way that he was taken off, the way that he did the fight, the way that the car left, the way that the National Guard or whatever they were, the ones in fatigues, came out with guns blazing. To be present in an event like that, I don't blame you for seeing what you saw and believing 117% that there's no way what you experienced wasn't real. I don't doubt it. Of course you believe that. I'm not here to try to disrespect you with any of my analysis. You should believe that that was real. You experienced it. That's your experience. It doesn't mean that my analysis is going to agree. When you take that 40,000 foot view and analyze the whole thing, not in a personal 4th row experience where you have been emotionally tied to an event. The whole idea of 5th generation warfare and making us aware of it is to protect our minds and control our emotions, right? So you're emotionally tied to the event and I am not.
It's a giant study it's a giant study in psychology. You know, all you got to do is go online and watch experiments where you either jump out at somebody or you do something scary, and you know they have something crazy right in front of their eyes, like a guy in a clown suit or a naked person or something. And when you ask them what happened, they didn't even see that, because the second you react, you're not going to see what's going on. That's, you know, as we talked about before, that's why Q talks about that emotions cloud judgment. That's how they get away with things like, you know, COVID and Sandy Hook. And that's why we go back, you know, and watch events like Sandy Hook, and you watch the video of like the same people walking in one door, around the building, back in another door, in one door, back, or like what you guys showed yesterday with Columbine. I watched that for like 12 hours after that took place in 1999. I was in college back then. I never noticed that. Why? Because my emotions were set by the narrative first. Right? If the second you let the narrative in front of you dictate what you're seeing, then that's what you're going to think. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to get to that point where you say, wait, ignore that, like you said, like step outside, and then you go back and look at it with a fresh eye, you see a whole different set. And that's why, like we were saying, it is so mind-blowing to go back and look at things like Sandy Hook and Columbine and the Boston bombing and see what to us now is obvious. But it's obvious because at this point we're looking back, we're not looking at it with emotion anymore.
Yeah, you talked about we both talked about FORPOG, and it made me think of something. So it's funny how the show just kind of goes where it wants to go. I want to throw in, did you happen to listen yet to any of the No Such Agencies podcast?
I put it on for like a split second, actually, because you posted about it, but I haven't had a chance to dive into it yet.
Well, the reason I say that is because it did come out. There's 2 episodes. I'm only about halfway through the first one just because of time restraints. I do plan on watching the rest. I haven't yet found anything unbelievably interesting. It looks a little bit overproduced to me, to be honest, which was a little bit off-putting. That doesn't mean there isn't something there. I haven't been through it enough to give a full opinion yet, but I wanted to, because of Stormy and Abs showing that, I went back through the NSA's whole YouTube catalog, right? Did you see the one where it showed the 46 on the airplane? Dude. And not only that, but the other connection. Well, let's do that one first. So let's play this. We'll make this the last segment today. But I want to go back through this just because I haven't done shows all week until yesterday. But here's the clip I found, because let me just tell you, the 46 would mean nothing to me except for that Stormy Pager Joe in Absolute 1776 pointed out the fact that the last one said 17, just like the whole 17 segment we just went through. And I will tell you, there's another video that's older in the archive that also has a 17. Well, 46 is pretty significant if what's being insinuated is that the NSA has some level of control. Because if we're in a state of devolution, or whatever it might be, whatever the April Fool's trick Donald Trump talks about, the pause, whatever it might be, then the dash means 46. So if the NSA is in control, for them to also use 46 on top of 17, I find super intriguing, right? So here's that clip I found. Check this out.
Understand them and share them with U.S. officials and warfighters so that they can take action to keep our nation secure.
I missed it. I was trying to pause.
And take action to keep our nation secure.
That's a 46. Okay. And they talk about, this is about SIGINT.
This is not an easy task. SIGINT is technically challenging to produce. It is both an art and a science. Many of the signals we collect are encrypted, and usually they're not in English. It takes a team of mathematicians, linguists, analysts, and computer scientists armed with the latest technology working around the clock to turn signals like these into usable intelligence. But the results are worth it. SIGINT saves lives on the battlefield. It stops terrorist attacks and disrupts their operations.
Okay, so the NSA has a whole clip on SIGINT. Well, it turns out if you go to the drops, at the same time the NSA was putting out videos teaching the public about SIGINT, it's in the drops multiple times. Hold on, is that the right one I want? You type that into any search bar on your favorite aggregator site. Mine's QAG. So who's helping POTUS? Because there's no chance in hell that what we're watching is Donald Trump alone. He pointed out only a week prior to this, General Kellogg. Do you remember that clip? I'm going backwards now, but General Kellogg.
The day one.
Yeah, he said before day one. And he said multiple generals asked him to run. Well, that's the same thing the drops told us. Check this out.
Every day, viruses, malware, and other programs pose threats to our national security.
Software reverse engineering, or SRE, is a crucial skill for cybersecurity professionals, software developers, and security auditors to help wage battle against these threats.
One of the most powerful and versatile SRE tools was created by NSA and released to the public in 2019.
It's called Ghidra.
See that logo? Do you recognize that
is
logo?
A framework designed to augment the SRE.
Yeah, that's the 4chan Akun logo, isn't it?
Platform examination of code.
Users no longer spend their valuable time manually reverse engineering the code. They can now focus on understanding what the program does and how it does it.
Ghidra users have the power to uncover the vulnerabilities and gain insight into the intent of the code.
March 2024 is the 5th anniversary of Ghidra's public release, and it's been downloaded over 1 million times by government agencies, academia, and private corporations.
They're even using it on the name graphics.
Right.
Ghidra is used to detect and defend against countless threats to sensitive government and military computer systems.
Since its inception, Ghidra has been continuously enhanced with over 25 updates.
These updates feature improvements from both the Ghidra team and open source developers.
A new innovative feature will be released soon. It's called BSIM, or Behavioral Similarity.
While Ghidra translates bytes back into source code,
Sure.
BSIM looks at the source code for structural similarities to other source code. Those similarities provide clues for a user to interpret and tell a story about the code's origin.
Modern devices now contain gigabytes of code.
BSIM lets users assess and compare the code that is actually in a system to what is supposed to be in there. This provides an indication of the code's integrity or if it has been tampered with.
We are very excited to bring this feature to the public in a future update.
And we hope you join us on the journey to protect all of our networks from those who intend to do us harm. Working together, we can help make our country's data more secure than ever.
Visit Ghidra-sre.org to get involved in the diverse and powerful Ghidra community.
All right. Now, for anybody that's unaware of what we're laughing at, that's 8chan. So there was 4chan, 8chan, and 8kun. So that's 8chan. There's Ghidra. There's 8kun. There's I thought I was going to show Ghidra again. But that's kind of absurd. Right? Yeah. And you know what's funny? I don't have it pulled up, but this was called out on the drops way back. Somebody saw this. This isn't like I found it, I stumbled across it, but then I went into the drops and found out that I wasn't the first, right? So this was talked about with the OG add-ons. They called it out from the beginning. And Q laughed about it and said, you caught us. One's red and one's green. Red light, green light. Red castle, green castle.
I think I remember that. Did it they posted the actual logos and said, is this we seeing what we think we see? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's the freaking NSA, which is now under the umbrella of Space Force.
Yep. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's freaking
that's the ghost of the machine right there. Yeah. You know, and sometimes people might overthink it too much and say, well, all those people in the video are in on it. No, it's just somebody scripted that and made it, and it takes one person that was in on it to drop those little nuggets in there. It's incredible. Rambo, you got a minute to touch on New York before we wrap up?
Absolutely, yeah. Go ahead.
If I could I get your the screen for a minute? I just want your take on this because it's getting interesting.
Went down. You got to reshare it or something.
Let me do that one more time. Yep. Oh wait, before we do that, I know you've seen this one. I talked about this the other day. Talking about Ghost in the Machine. This is one of my favorites. This just happened to pop up. Biden with all the MAGA kids there. The kid with the shirt that says "I'll be back," and then you know, like I said the other night, if anybody thinks for a minute that any group of PR people or aides would have their job for more than 2 minutes after this happened, like you're not paying attention.
And with everything we just talked about, if you can't realize that Quaker steak bottle in the upper left-hand corner of this picture isn't strategically put there, then I don't know how to help you.
Right. Yep. That's exactly it. But anyway, it's getting interesting. I just wanted your take on, because now we've been here before, right? What I'm about to bring up, we've seen military in the cities. And so I am not insinuating that all hell is about to break loose or there's an EBS coming today or any of that kind of stuff. But the series of events that took place yesterday over the last few days in New York, and then something that happened with Scavino kind of has my interest peaked.
Okay.
So Rambo, we got, I'm sure you saw this video going around, this dude from Crowdsource the Truth, who's been showing one particular hotel in Midtown Manhattan where the military is basically occupying the hotel. Now, I get that the public narrative is they're guarding migrants. Personally, I tend to think that there's more going on here because we also have been seeing over in Brooklyn the same thing. There have been reports. I've seen a number of videos. I haven't pulled them here yet because I haven't been able to date them of military kind of roaming around the streets in Brooklyn. But then this one really got me, that the feds raided the home of the police commissioner in New York City and other bunch of Mayor Adams aides, I should say, right? So, again, that all that stuff is kind of happening. I'm keeping an eye on it, but and now I'm not somebody that tracks like everything that Dan Scavino does. I think personally, there's a point in which you can over decode stuff and it kind of gets a little crazy. But what I do pay attention to, especially on his page, is when he posts at random hours of the night, he'll post videos with really no logic to it or it's just music, right? Usually I pay attention to that. So he posted this last night. I'm not going to play this the song, but it's New York City, a shot of Central Park. That's obviously from Trump Tower. We know Trump is in New York, but it was posted at 8:59, 26 seconds long, right? So keep in mind all the stuff that's happening in New York. Picture of New York, 26 seconds long. And what is drop 26? Think about it logically. The only way is the military, fully controlled, save and spread.
11.3 verifies its first marker, biggest advanced drop on poll. So do you want my take yet? Or you got more to add to it?
I got one short video after this of his, but yeah, I'd love to hear your take. Let me see if I can get the sound off on this.
I think that all of these operations that look like they're separate are intertwined. Right. So everything is being done to it's like a shell game. Right. Look over here. Look, the open border isn't an exposure op. Donald Trump told us about it all the way back to 2015. They were going to try to flood our country with immigrants. I believe 117% that we are using a process that Barack Obama put in place where we offer citizenship through enlistment because they had a contingency plan knowing that no one would want to fight for the fake Joe Biden administration that was going to look tyrannical and communist. So therefore used a legal process, as the drops told us. Everything had to be done by the book. They're using legal processes to expose these things and also protect us at the same time. Now, that being said, I think what you're seeing happen in New York is because Donald Trump's going to get arrested. I think that they're using the protecting migrants or whatever so that they continue to motivate us emotionally. And I think that there's a large event coming, like Donald Trump going to jail. We predicted that he would get his failed assassination attempt. I don't think that this, with reading the drops and seeing all that we've seen, is outlandish. I think that we have to see how bad they've done so that it'll be easier to do what has to be done because everybody will agree with us. And if they arrest Donald Trump, first arrest will shock the world. I can't think of anybody else that would be more shocking. So I think he's going to get arrested. And I think that those military are there for crowd control. It's my opinion.
You made my job easy, man. I tend to agree with you. I think that, and that's exactly what I've been kind of posting about. I think that I tend to agree with you that he's going to get arrested. Selfishly, I kind of hope he does because I know it's part of the show. I know that Q tells us 9 different ways from Sunday that POTUS is insulated. So I think that's the kind of thing that needs to happen. That kind of one of those seminal events that needs to happen to get us where we need to go. And same thing with the.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I got to play something because the chat's blowing up with it, and I'm aware. So let's play this quick because my theory would be pushed off because of this.
Yes, this is some breaking news coming from the New York City courts. Judge Juan Marchand, who has been the presiding judge over former President Trump's so-called hush money case, has made a determination that he is not going to go ahead with the September 18th sentencing date for the former president that it will be delayed until after the election. This had been a really fraught decision for this judge because people had observed, Sandra, that if he had have gone ahead with the sentencing, then the former president could have accused him of meddling in an election. And if he decided to delay the sentencing until after the election, no doubt he would get hit by a lot of accusations that he was acting in Donald Trump's political interests as opposed to in the interests of justice. But the breaking news coming to us just a couple of minutes ago, Judge Juan Merchan, the presiding judge in the so-called hush money case with Stormy Daniels, has decided to delay the sentencing for the former president until after the November election. Yes.
First of all, Stormy Daniels, Stormy, obvious reference. Daniels means God is my judge. So Forpog is at it again. This is cute and all, except for that it's the mainstream media. We know the news is fake. We know that we're watching a show. So this is just more narrative because I still think it's possible we don't have a traditional election. 2020 will be exposed, in my opinion. So we can play with this narrative all we want, but I do think that the National Guard are there to protect from some sort of event, whether it be his arrest or something similar. Sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, look, there's in real time. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in. You know, that there is a perfect example, and I hate to make everything into a lesson, but I'm going to in this case. The number of people that still unfortunately get themselves wrapped up in dates, you know, and I've seen a lot of people going around, oh, that's it, the 18th, that's it, it's all over, the military is coming in, you know, and there you go, right? So, but to your point, the military is still there, and seemingly there's more of them popping around. So why? There's you know, there's something in play. And this is unfortunately why, you know, people need to stop saying moving the goalposts. To say moving the goalposts, you're insinuating that those goalposts were set by the military. They weren't. They were set by you and your expectations. That's just a fact. And I say that because I did it. I had a period of time where I did it. It caused me a lot of despair and confusion and everything else. And then eventually you realize that there's some better. Yeah, remember this was supposed to be originally July 11th, 7/11. Oh, it's 7/11. Elon posted 7/11. It's going to be that day. And then it gets pushed back. And now it's pushed back again. There's a reason for it. It's obviously, like you said, it's not what they're telling you on the screen. I don't believe for a second there actually is a Judge Merchan that's actually controlling any of this. That's my opinion. I've been saying that about the trials. I think you're probably on the same page. It's a scripted show. It's to inject evidence. It's to set precedent. Everything we've talked about. So we just have to wait and see. It's interesting, man. Very interesting.
Do you know what I believe 7/11 was about? Do you know what that? Do you know who is one of the top donors in all of Twitter?
Why am I blanking on who that is? Tell me.
Aloweed, I think.
That's right.
Aloweed. So thank you,
That's
Dopey.
right.
Dopey is Aloweed. If you go back and look at Donald Trump's tweets, King to Pawn, eyes on Q. Well, Elon had a hostile takeover of Twitter, and Aloweed. If you look back, if you want to go on a fun 17 rabbit hole, start searching Aloweed. Go back and look at all the 17s and the news stories that go along with this dude, and he's still to this day a top donor to Twitter. So for when Elon was posting all that 7/11 stuff, I think it was a direct to look into Dopey, who Donald Trump coined Dopey. And the drops called him the same thing. So yeah, I'm not sure that had anything to do with the date.
Yeah, and he's also mentioned by name in the drops a few times too.
Yes. Yeah. I hope I'm saying that right. I hope I mix up my guys from Saudi Arabia, but I think I'm right about Aloweed. There's a few of them. Prince this and Prince that. I think Aloweed's the one I'm talking about. Anyway. Well, dude, I'm going to tell you, this is an absolute blast. I hope that we do it more often. I'd love to come over and hang out with you again if you find the time and we can figure out a date. I absolutely want to throw you into the rotation over here because we just had a masterpiece of a show because of your background and your research and the way we get along. So This has been a blast, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Definitely, I want to do this regularly. We'll touch base about that for sure. I love the vibe that we have together, and yeah, man, I appreciate everything you're doing, all the work you do, man. You do incredible work, and your success, like I said at the top of the show, is very, very well deserved, and it's only going to grow from here, man. So I look forward to doing a lot more of these with you.
Well, I know not everybody doesn't want to hear about it all the time, but again, it's only just over 4 months that this platform has been on. So when I look down and I see 1,500 people here in Rumble in the middle of the day, that is unbelievably motivating. You guys, just for sheer numbers from being here and hitting the thumbs up, are motivating me to work even harder at what we're doing here. And to be able to get the amazing guests that we're, everything about the way that this is working feels like something greater than myself is doing it. So thank you all for being here and doing that. And look at the numbers. They just keep going up. You guys are amazing. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Please do me a favor and share the show out. Dave, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to stay on for a minute while I thank sponsors and stuff.
Yep.
Obviously, Mike Lindell. I hate that we have this. I can't wait till you're at your house. That lag messes with me. And I hope it doesn't come off as rude, because I keep cutting you off. So I apologize about that.
No, it's all good, man. All good.
Obviously, Mike Lindell. So you want to go over there and save up to 80% on Mike Lindell's products. The dude's awesome. He sponsors just about every single one of us. He jumped right on board to sponsor this show as soon as we started back up with our new platform. But go over to mypillow.com. The products there, I haven't found one thing that I've gotten from Mike that hasn't been awesome. I use my robe every once in a while. The robe hangs on the back of my door, but that one, when it's chilly, as it's about to be again, I love using that robe coming out of the shower. I got the small pillow, the big pillow, the sheets, the dog bed. I have to replace my dog bed. We got 4 dogs here. They destroyed the last one, but it took a while. They loved it. They loved it until that was over. But you were talking earlier about your metal stuff. Have you tried any type of detox, dude?
I have a bunch, but actually, because of this, I've been looking at this. In fact, I'm gonna use your link to get some of this, because I have a few in the rotation. But not to go on long about this, but anybody that's had problems and needs to detox, one of the reasons I am going to check this out is everybody knows there's not one solution when you're trying to go through this. So, everything you can afford to get that you can put in your rotation, whether it's activated charcoal or zeolite or any of those things. I buy stuff like this all the time because I like to just rotate a lot of it through. So yeah, I'm intrigued by this line for sure.
You got to try the zeolite for the metal stuff you were talking about earlier. So and if you want, I'll try to hook you up with Patrick from Badlands, because this is his line. I'm sure it's not him alone, but this is Patrick Gunnell's thing, and he jumped right on board to help support over here. So Patrick, whether you love him or not, he's a little bit polarizing, right? But I love him. I think he's awesome. I love that he thinks everything is fake and gay. I think it's hysterical. And the dude could literally sell ice to an Eskimo. I keep joking that he should get a 3 a.m. show on Badlands where he just does like an infomercial and sells like ShamWows or whatever, because he's so good at it.
Dude, we should do the Anon shopping channel.
Yeah. But the truth is that Patrick is very smart at what he does, and he believes wholeheartedly. He has convinced me offline, back channel, not in front of anybody, that he believes he's changing lives with the zeolite. The Rainfall lotion is absolutely amazing. The creamy body butter. Kim just got mad at me because I have it down here because I keep showing it, and she's like, "I really liked the body butter. Can you please bring it back upstairs?" So maybe I'll do that after the show. But the one thing I don't have yet is the barge soap, which is my next item on the list. But for anybody that's unaware, somebody asked me to start putting these links in the descriptions. I will start doing that on the next show. But it is epicminerals.net, and it's the same as my pillow. Just use promo code Rambo. If you choose to do this, you will be doing yourself a favor in detoxing, and you'll be supporting a Patriot company, and in turn also supporting the show. So epicminerals.net. epicminerals.net. Please go over there and support them. It supports me. So thank you. All right. That was awesome. I don't think I missed any Rumble rants or anything. Next week, Rambo and Frens. I have a couple friends who are 05 and above AF and are very black pilled. What is the best evidence to prove military with Trump? That's a good question, David. Maybe I'll toss this to you after I say a few words. There's a reason that there's a plan. There's a reason that there's a process. If they're good friends of yours and they disagree so wholeheartedly or they're so black-pilled, my honest opinion is to not try to push anything on them. My advice would be to walk the way that you would think would be attractive. Don't try to shove anything down anyone's throat, but rather just stand firm and confident in your beliefs. And so when something that this plan is taken care of triggers a question in their mind, that's also the other thing you can do is maybe just ask a question or two, something softly. You don't ever want to tell them they're stupid. You don't ever want to be abrasive. You don't ever want to shove anything down anybody's throat. The idea, and it's why I use social media, because you can just swipe by if you want to. The way is just to be confident in your beliefs and also slightly passive in a way that when they come to something that triggers a question, they'll ask you. And once you are approached with the question, you can then strategically present the information. That's my best advice. Would you agree with that, Dave?
Everything you said, and I think the issue we run into, and we've all been through it, so I'm not being critical of whoever asked the question, is you're likely talking when you're dealing with a normie or somebody that's only semi-awakened, that's the kind of thing they ask, like, what is the thing you can show me? In other words, where's the 15-minute Fox News segment that'll prove to me that the military is running the country? And unfortunately, that doesn't really exist. You know, you have to look at the continuity directives, look at John's devolution series, and then get that framework, and then go into some of the things like what Rambo and I show on both of our channels, you know, military with the wrong uniforms and the military protecting Trump, and on and on and on and on. But yeah, Rambo, excellent advice. The only thing I would add to that I do at this point, because everything we're talking about, by the way, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I tried doing with most of the people that I was friends and coworkers with, and that's why they all still think I'm insane. However, what I still do with those people to this point, to this day, and it's different with every relationship, is when they send me something about an event happening with Trump in the news, especially when it comes to things that I know aren't really happening as a narrative, I still stand my ground, and I don't reply to everything they say. I'll just write back and I'll say, yeah, well, you know, the military is running the country, and I just leave it at that. And when they figure it out, they'll figure it out. But yeah, I think we all learned that lesson at some point, which is the people that ask for one, you know, your friends that are asking for what can you show me, they're looking for the Fox News segment likely, or you know, a 3-minute blog that you can read that will completely prove what's taken us 3 or 4 years to properly understand. So agree with you, Rambo.
Yeah, 100. We're on the same page with that. So this is another good question. I don't typically do this, but this is a good question. And it's look, I talked about yesterday being a second generation Anon. Dave and I have talked about it today. The idea of the Great Awakening is that more and more people are joining us every day. And the Q drops, as far as I'm concerned, are becoming more and more relevant every day. So this is a great question. Can you guys show us how to look at the Q drops, like where to go? So I'm going to say this to preempt it. I honestly don't suggest anyone goes to the chants unless you are ready to see things that are going to shock you, right? There's porn on there. There's horrible things on the chants. Not being Anon, it's just my opinion that it's not the place to send somebody that's just first looking into the Q drops, especially when there's such amazing aggregator sites like there's tons of them. My favorite, mostly because my relationship with the guy that does the site, Phil, who's been on this show before, would be QAG. So if you just go to QAG.news, QAG.news. So it's QAGG.news. I actually have it on my browser here, but if you go to QAG.news, this is an aggregator site. So it has all of the drops. Now you can literally go here and there's different search tools on the top of the page. So you can, you know, if I want to see just today's deltas throughout Q history, I can just look at today's deltas. So today in Q, this is what was all posted on this day, right? If I want to pick a certain drop, like I just did in front of you guys earlier, I can go to drop number. I just pulled 711 just a minute ago. All I did, We'll search 7-Eleven. Boom. There it is. Now, if I want to search a keyword, my favorite drop, I'll look up military, civilian, and look what I'm going to find. Oh, did I not put it in right?
Oh, you missed the V at the end.
Military, civilian.
There you go.
I find the keyword, and there's my favorite drop. This has never been attempted. Use of public counter narrative. Propaganda push to control media. Analysis start to now indicates situational awareness, decoupling of MSDNC, control of information, channels 1 through 99, of general public expanding at massive pace. Attacks indicate and can be defined as loss of generalized information, need to expand ammunition, muster networks to defend and coordinate attacks to counter military, civilian alliance. They are literally telling you that this has never been attempted before. This is a slow-rolled exposure campaign, and we are working in tandem with the military. It's my favorite drop. So yes, and there's different things. I mean, there's different tricks. If you want to specifically find a number, right? So we'll say, I don't know, 10. Put it in kill brackets. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. You can look for different numbers within the drops. Every single one that I search that's going to have that, and they'll highlight what you're searching for. So yeah, my favorite one is qag.net. There's other aggregator sites, but this is my favorite. That is the easiest way to go ahead and do that. Do you have any advice
Rambo,
on that?
could you? Yeah, could you? I'm glad you brought this up because this is a much better in-depth lesson than I did the other night. But what we did show with Mike King the other night that I think is a good, because I think there's a lot of really good people in both our communities that want to dive in like this. But then I think where the reason people stay away from it sometimes, I think they get intimidated by the deltas and the timestamps and all the other things that we do sometimes. But what I encourage people to do is to, like you just showed, to do keyword searches when there's an event or a topic or something. So here's a really good example. The other night, Mike was going over an article that he wrote about the reversal of affirmative action by the Supreme Court and the implications for it in terms of what's really going on behind the scenes. That kind of shows that the good guys are really in control, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a prime example where it's not dictated in the Q drops as far as what happened with the Supreme Court and affirmative action. But if you type in, if you don't mind, Joe, type in the word affirmative into the search terms. And this is what another way I encourage people to use the drops is to put in keywords like this.
Is it IT?
TIVE. I believe that's it. Yeah. Perfect. So here's an example where now Q, this isn't a future proves past where they talked about the Supreme Court overcoming affirmative action. However, it's mentioned in the drops. And that drop that Joe has his mouse on right there is an entire list of receipts about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her writings going back to 1978. And that she had belief. It's actually right there. If you scroll up a little bit, I think it talks about.
We're looking at this one.
The one about children.
It looks like they're both similar. And this one's, some of these drops
scroll up
a lot of information.
Can you scroll up a little bit more?
This is Ruth Bader Ginsburg right there.
Well, anyway, it's in that list. But basically, one of the things she wanted to do was reduce the age of consent down to below 12. And here's Q. They're giving you her book, and it says, why was she selected? Who appointed her? Remember her history. And then it gives you all the receipts from her book. There you go. Called for reducing the age of consent for sexual acts to people who are less than 12 years old. Sick. This is why Trump says these people are sick. So my point being, while this is not directly related to the reversal, it's not a future-proof pass. Oh my God, Q told us they were going to reverse it. But just by putting this keyword in there, you get receipts on who some of these, and I personally believe that RBG was dealt with. I think we got a narrative when she passed away. I think she was removed and dealt with, but that's just my theory. But if you get into the habit of putting in some of the topics, like what Rambo just showed you, very often, even if it's not directly related to what's happening today, there is a plethora of things like that in the Q drops, where it'll give you not only receipts, but it gives you context as to like how we got here. I mean, look at what they were trying to do. Look at the kind of people they were installing on the Supreme Court so that they could normalize things like transgender and pedophilia and everything else. That's where we were headed if Trump and the White Hats didn't step in.
I'm gonna tell you guys how simple that decode was the other night that blew everybody's minds, mine included. I literally heard Hannity say 1630 in a very weird way. And then he said the 1629, which was also very weird. All I did was come here and put it in. Because I'm like, you know what, that triggered something and I don't understand why. And I put in 1630 and I scroll down and it's literally about school shootings. That is as deep. It took me that quick. While Hannity was playing on my phone, I kept listening, switched over to QAG.news real quick, put the number in and went, holy crap. It was that simple. Yep. It really wasn't that deep. Like this didn't take a bunch of research. And that's why I love the aggregator sites. So yeah, yep. It can be that.
Yeah, same thing. Same thing when if you want to dive into it. The same thing when you see, an easy one. Just to go back to what we touched on before, the one Rambo just said, or like when you see Dan Scavino, if you think Dan Scavino is just hanging out at like 3:17 in the morning, posting a random 28-second video or a 34-second video. And that's another one where you can put the timestamp or the length of the video into the Q drops, and you'll be amazed at what you get. You start playing around with it. It's not as complicated as you think. But yeah, great idea, Rambo. The chat's loving this.
Yeah, that was really cool. Well, unfortunately, I have to call it at some point because I can hear kids stomping around upstairs, and I gotta start making. I'm gonna go out and grill some burgers today, I think so. I wanted to say next week. First of all, what is it that you have coming up that you'd like to promote, please? Anything at all? Last words for Dave from News Treason.
No, we're on usually 3-4 days a week. Our next show is this Sunday. We're going to be doing a roundtable with Patriot Underground and Bishop Jim O'Connor, and Mark will be back there. And if anybody's looking for us, the link that's on the screen, newstreason.com, that goes right to our link tree, and it's got our Rumble channel and Telegrams and X and all that other stuff. Easiest way to find us.
I gotta do that, bro. You gotta teach me how to do that. I gotta.
It's easy. Yeah, I'll help you out.
A-Track did it too, where you just click on his .com and it goes everywhere. All right, cool. Well, this next week coming up is unfortunately I go from my hell week, which is 3 day shifts into 3 night shifts into my full week of day shifts. So next week is a week where we will not have Abs and Joe on Thursday because unfortunately I'm at work. Now, the silver lining is Tuesday night, September 10th, I'm going to be on with them, which I heard you might. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that yet. Look, on Tuesday, I'm going to be on Eye of the Storm. Tuesday night at 10:30 p.m. I will be doing a 9/11 decode show with those guys. I freaking can't wait. I hope everybody here comes to support them. What they do is unbelievable. Absolute has become one of my closest friends in the movement. Look, I've met hundreds of people, probably thousands of people at this point. There's probably hundreds of new phone numbers in my phone, legitimately. Awakened Outlaw, you, Dave, now. Absolute. I've started to make some of the best friends I've ever made. Stormy Patriot Joe is one of the most brilliant minds. Enoch's, right? We can run right down the list. But going on their show on Tuesday night is an honor above many I've had in my life, to be honest. So Tuesday night, please come support that show as I will be on there, and I cannot freaking wait. It's going to be awesome. And then I won't have a show again on this platform until Friday. I haven't quite figured out who's going to be on here yet Friday. But we do have a show on Monday that's scheduled. So that will be Sarge, SSG, and Feisty Cat. I can't wait for that. I haven't talked to them now in a couple weeks, and they're usually on a lot more, but this is my 2 weeks where it becomes pretty difficult. So I really had to whittle it down. Thank you, Neo, for the shades. That means the world to me. Speaking of that, I'll release the scratch. And are you unpilled, Dave?
I'm not yet.
Dude, you got to get on there. You got to get on Pilled.net.
On my list.
Dude, you have to. The community at pill.net is like kind of second to none. Look, it's an echo chamber. You're not gonna have a whole lot of people that go against, right? But the community is second to none. And the way that we support each other over there is really cool because a gold pill is basically a penny, right? So you can donate $1 and say something cool through gold pills. Like I think shades are $4. They just gave me 400 gold pills. And then at the end of the show, you get this really cool way to give back where you really just scratch it and everybody can go and scratch and win back. Sometimes it's 5 pills or 6 pills or whatever. But then we all take those pills and we go and we support the other channels that are on the platform. Pill.net is really, really cool. There isn't quite as many people as Rumble, but I'm hoping it continues to grow. And there's a lot of really good content creators that are over there ensuring that it happens. 412, Badlands, Woke Societies. Woke Societies, that's his main platform. So, yeah, tons of great ones. We got to get you over
good
there.
To know, man. Yeah, you're like the second person to tell me that, and I've been meaning to get over there. So I will definitely add that to my list. Thanks, man.
Neo said best family echo chamber ever. He's kind of right. There's some really good Christian shows. There's some really good music shows. There's some really good, freaking shoot. I can't spit it out. One of my best friends over there. I can't even see the Drunk Pinatas over there. Matrix Codebreaker, Brain Pod. Anyway, this has been awesome, dude. I cannot wait to do it again. Here we go with this dumb farts again. I don't have a moderator on Rumble. I got to do it myself. So it's funny that they just keep starting new channels so that they can continue to write fart. A-holes. All right. You're the man, bro. I can't wait to do it again. And absolutely let me know. We can look at calendars. I would love to come over there, and I'm definitely going to have you back. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. And good luck on Tuesday, man. Well deserved being on Eye of the Storm. Well deserved.
I know. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome, right? It's exciting. All right. Much love, guys. We will see you on Tuesday night, Eye of the Storm, and Friday here. See you, Dave. Thank you.
Take care.